Now, with just 8 days to go before Election Day, you have a new CBS News YouGov survey finding that there is a tie across the composite battleground states collectively, while Harris maintains a 1-point lead in a national vote preference. Joining me now to break it all down, the Republican mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, and 2021 WWE Hall of Fame inductee, Glenn Jacobs, better known to all of my wrestling fans out there as Kane. Mayor, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining the program. What do you make of how tight some of the polling has been, particularly within battleground states?
I think that's just how this race is going to shake out. We saw the same thing in 2016, 2020. Back then, of course, it was going to be a landslide for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Didn't quite turn out that way. So I think that with polling, there's always the challenge of just what particular time and what issues, what questions are asked, and all of those things. But nevertheless, I think that we're seeing a lot of momentum in the Trump camp, and I think that the Harris camp is actually panicked about that at this point.
Shouldn't he be further ahead given the issues that are on the ballot, like economy, inflation, immigration?
Well, sure. Again, when you look at 2016, he was well behind Hillary Clinton. In fact, many pundits were saying that was going to be a landslide, and it wasn't. And this time he's actually closed the gap since then. So I think come Election Day, I don't think Trump ever polls really well. I think the most important in the final poll is Election Day, and I think he's going to do very well in that one.
We were talking about his rally last night in Madison Square Garden. Elon Musk was speaking about cutting about $2 trillion from a $6.5 trillion bloated government, as many people would say. But do you think that that's realistic? Could someone really come in as a government efficiency officer and cut $2 trillion?
Something's going to happen. We're on a completely unsustainable path here with spending. When we look at the debt, when we look at the amount of money the federal government spends, its budget compared to GDP, all of that is completely out of whack. So something has to be done. It would be politically painful, but if it isn't done now, it's going to be much more painful in the future. So that would be something I would definitely like to see, would be to see the federal government really pared back.
What issue is top of mind for your constituents?
For us, inflation in the economy, immigration, public safety, all the things that folks think about when you talk about government. Politics actually isn't that hard. People want good roads, they want safe neighborhoods, and they want good schools. And what we're seeing under the Biden-Harris administration is the complete opposite of that. That's why literally Vice President Harris has created a straw man to where she's running against her own record and saying, I'm not going to do those things when I get into office, but that's exactly what she's doing right now.
I have to give you a little bit of a jab here. I'm a former UFC fan. I do love wrestling, but, I think when people see Trump go to UFC fights, that's very clear that that's his audience. Within your world of wrestling and WWE, is there room for swing voters in that camp?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, I don't think any audience is monolithic. So I do think that you see people that have different viewpoints, and I have some colleagues who are friends of mine that believe things that are vastly different from what I believe, but we still get along as best as we can. And that's one of the unfortunate things about the political environment now and how it's so divisive is the fact that you can't even talk with anyone anymore, just about the issues, frankly, about anything. And it'd be great if we get back to the point where we could have those heated discussions, but at the end of the day, realize that we're all trying to work towards a common goal, which is improving our country.
A common goal from the Republicans has also been improving the messaging around early voting. How is early voting going in your district?
The numbers are huge. In Tennessee, we have a 2-week period of early voting, and this time the numbers have been through the roof, as they have around the country.
Well, I guess you can't really have any results yet, but you have an idea of how many people have voted versus Election Day. Is it higher than it was 4 years ago?
Yes, it will be much higher than it was. I don't know the exact figure, but it will be much higher.
You've talked about some of the issues, and people have really mentioned spending. I think for me, I think about managing the budget of a family, of a young daughter. I think about that every time I go to the grocery store. People sort of get their eyes glazed over when we talk about federal debt because it's like the government can just print trillions and it doesn't matter. But it matters to my family. If I'm required to budget in my family, I need a federal government that too takes that same fiscal responsibility and manages their budget. Are you confident that the next administration can get our fiscal house in order?
Yes, I am, especially as you mentioned with Elon coming in and some other folks that President Trump has talked about bringing in as advisors or his cabinet. I think so. And one thing that folks have to remember, yeah, we all get that glazed over look when we start talking about finance, but the reason the national debt is so important is, yeah, they can print money to make up for the budget, but it still goes into a tax. It's called inflation. And the reason that bread and milk and gasoline are all so much more expensive is because the federal government has put in so much money to buttress its outrageous spending habits. Again, we're going to have to do something. I think this Trump administration, it's going to be pretty different from the first one. I think that the administrative state, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, I think this time that they are in deep trouble, that Donald Trump is going to take care of that. A lot of these bureaucrats that have lifetime jobs will be shown the door, and that's nothing but good news to the American people.
Well, I'm glad that at least two of us, you and me, our eyes don't glaze over when we talk about federal debt and deficit. So I guess we get 2 points right there. I wanted to end on a topic we were just coming off from a previous conversation about building nuclear sites to power AI. We know that solar and wind is great, but it doesn't reliably power AI and the desperate, power needs that we need in the future. For your county, in your state of Tennessee, what are you guys doing to invest in nuclear and make sure that you can be an AI hub for businesses?
Well, here in Tennessee, in East Tennessee, we have a huge advantage. We have the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which was part of the Manhattan Project. And then, of course, the offspring of that was nuclear power. The first light bulb lit using nuclear power, using electricity generated from a nuclear power plant, was right in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which is about 30 miles down the road. And since then, they've just kept up that great research pedigree that they've had since the 1940s. We just had a major announcement that a company called Orano will be investing $6 billion close to the lab to build the country's first uranium enrichment facility in over 20 years. So here in Tennessee, we believe that we can help lead the nuclear renaissance across the country, across the world, really. And as you said, that's what has to happen. Nuclear is the only energy source that's going to be able to accommodate the electricity needs of the future.
Well, Mayor Glenn Jacobs, we're really appreciative of your time and your expertise and giving us some insight into your county, your state, and of course, some of the viewership as we're coming up on Election Day as well. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.